All right, so I'm kind of at a standstill right now on the machine. Um, I discovered that there's a difference between 40 chain and 41 chain, but which stands to reason, two different numbers, right? Duh. Um, but when you go to buy sprockets online off of Amazon and stuff like that, it will tell you right in the description. Takes 40, 41, or 410 chain or something like that. It'll have all those chains listed. Trouble is, it doesn't. All right, so don't fall for it. This is a 40 sprocket. This is a number 41 chain. See what's happening here? So we ran 30 minutes one way to a different town that has a lot of agricultural tractor. Every time. It has a lot of ag equipment dealerships. Of course, they're all closed because of this COVID-19 thing. So couldn't do that. So we went to Fleet Farm, which is where I got my gears before, and they don't have anything for 41 chain. Even though they sell 41 chain, they don't have any gears. Everything's for 40. All they have is 40 sprockets, which is where I got this chain tensioner idler gear. Won't fit the chain I have. I do have some 40 chain, but the sprocket that's on the clutch is actually for a 41. And I can't change the sprocket on the clutch because it's part of the clutch. So basically when the sprocket wears out, you buy a new clutch. So I have to order a different sprocket and then cut the old one off the shaft. And so there's nothing I can do on the machine now. So I'm starting to work on the toboggan. And my plans for the toboggan include putting a solid tow bar on it. You gotta have that. You can't tow a toboggan behind one of these machines with a rope because the machine stops, and they stop rather suddenly, and you just keep going and you pile right into the back of the machine. So it's got to be a solid tow bar. That's what gives you your strength too for towing heavy equipment or heavy loads. But I wanted to have a suspension seat for my sensitive little tushy. As you're going over bumpy trails or bumpy ice or whatever, you know, that's going to be hard on the keister. So years ago, a buddy of mine that used to race ATVs had some racing coilover spring shocks that he didn't need anymore. So he gave them to me. And I've been hanging on to them like I do everything else. And I happen to have a adjustable pedestal seat post for a boat that I hung on to. So I combined the two together to make a springy suspension seat post. Worked out pretty good, actually. So yeah, that's pretty much done. But what I'm doing now is, and I was going to bolt it all together. You know, so it's permanent, but I mean, it's springy. It just, the shocks haven't been used in a while, so it just needs to be loosened up a little bit. But anyway, where's my tripod? Set you up on here, and that way you can see what I'm doing. So it does have some spring to it, but these shocks are kind of old, so they haven't been used in years. So they got to be softened up a little bit. The more I use this, I think the better they'll be. But it's basically a coilover sitting inside the post. And I don't need to bolt anything down. in there. And when I get to my truck at the end of the day, I just take the seat off. Bottom part of the pedestal will be bolted to the sled. Pull the shock out. Throw the whole toboggan right in the truck. Well, why make it harder than it needs to be? So anyway, now I'm working on the, and this will get bolted to the bottom of the sled. Now I'm working on the tow bar. Dang it, allergies. And I see that I just cut this bar too short, because what I could have done, dang it, Kim. What I could have done is had it long enough so that it sticks out like this, and this bar would actually fold back onto the toboggan instead of hanging off the front. I might end up welding the piece I cut off back on here so that it does that. So it does like the machine. The bars on the machine fold forward to make the unit more compact for transport and storage. I got to do the same thing on here. So I got to have these stick out far enough so that they'll actually, the whole hitch assembly can fold back on the toboggan. Yeah, that has to happen. So the plan is to heat up the end of this pipe, use the hot end to actually melt a hole through the pipe, through the sled, and then that will be my pivot point. And I got to get it just right so that the bulk of the bar is pulling against the front face of this sled and not all the force is on the holes that I melted through. I want all the force on the front of this toboggan pulling forward. So that's got to be pretty precise. And then it's just a matter of welding on some little standouts and then welding them together and then making a hitch pin setup that bolts, that slips over the existing hitch on the snowmobile. Easy peasy. So I'm gonna work on that, but I see I gotta do something here. I gotta weld that back together. So, but yeah, then there's enough room behind me to put a pail. I wanted to keep some room here so that I can stand to drive it. So this is actually going to go farther forward. This is going to come up. They're going to be able to reach the bars, but I don't want my knees hitting the bars. So there we go. Just like that. So, cool beans. Let's get at it.